Hello and welcome to Dinis Guarda YouTube podcast series, powered by citiesabc.com and openbusinesscouncil.org, our general global platforms to change the world with digital transformation and fourth industrial revolution tools. Once again, we keep this series, and today we are in the 210th series episode. And I think we've been bringing in the last 2 years some of the global top personalities in different areas. And I think every personality that has been passing through our series always brings inspiration and as well a lot of great ideas and ways of looking at the world, business, and the way they put things forward, and especially how we can actually make the world a bit more utopian narrative and as well a better place, let's put it that way. Today, my guest is Braham Singh. That is a fantastic personality, and I think it has a multifaceted personality in terms of skills and achievements. So Braham is the CEO of Big Data Exchange, BDx, data centers, which brings different hybrid cloud connectivity and colocation solutions. Is an executive leader with experience in business and development, and as well all the areas of business and CEO, and as well a global thought leader with more than 30 years experience in the telecom industry, content delivery networks, and cloud services. As an executive leader, Braham Singh has held key positions as Senior Vice President at the Global Product Management of Reliance Communications and Global Cloud Exchange, and also was the CEO of Red Snapper, a Malaysian government-funded initiative to promote the growth of wireless broadband in the country. And he was as well the CEO of IDC and Associated Business, and has been playing a leading role in developing AGC, cutting-edge big data exchanges, and a lot of different areas in terms of content services. So in terms of, I think the CV as a CEO and as a leadership personality, it goes in a lot of different areas, from hyperscaling companies to multinational and financial services, and of course the areas of infrastructure and IT or clouds, and a lot of the different areas in cloud computing and digital solutions. I think Braham is as well an experienced author. And I think that's an area that I'll touch, even if it's separated from his level as a leadership, because this series is as well about people. And it's been actually writing and discussing ideas about innovative in terms of philosophy and in terms of books and articles. He has written Bombay Swastika, a thriller that swings from Nazi Berlin gearing up to final solutions. And it's a very interesting book in itself, and as well as the contributing author to the Amazon bestseller Greener Data. And this is one of the areas we're going to be talking as well about sustainability, ESG, and all the challenges this brings both for data, especially the new inception of data, and Web3 is going to consume more data than ever in history. So I think there's a lot of more things, but I think this is a small introduction. And Braham, it's great to have you here. I'm excited to go forward with this.
Thank you, Dinis. Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and delighted. I mean, when you gave me the invitation, I could not refuse. We've heard about your podcast, and excited to be here. Hope I can contribute in some way.
Thank you so much. So I want to start with. So you have quite an international background. You are based in Southeast Asia. I don't know where you are now. I don't know if you are in Malaysia or in India. But give us a bit of the context and your background, both cultural, educational, and corporate, and as well career.
Sure, Dinis. Right now, by the way, I'm in Bali. Of all places, one of the hardship postings in Asia. Someone has to do it. So my team and I are here. There's a conference we're attending, and I don't know if you're aware, we've just acquired a presence in Indonesia. We have a joint venture now with Indosat Ooredoo Hutchison, which we have acquired. The JV now has 4 data centers in Indonesia, so we're one of the largest operators now of data center facilities in Indonesia, which is why we're here. As I think as I jumped the gun, but before this, regarding my past, I grew up in Bombay, in what's now called Mumbai, and so that's where I grew up and schooled, and barely managed to pass through college. After which I found my foothold in programming. I was a reasonably good writer of programs on PDP-11s, the old machines, before a lot of people were born listening to this. And from there, then I moved to Hong Kong, and from Hong Kong to Singapore to the US. Home for me now is Oakton, Virginia. That is home. But I'm also a permanent resident in Hong Kong, so I tend to shuttle between the two places. Hong Kong is where I'm spending most of my time now, because my latest venture is BDx, where my management team and I operate data centers in Nanjing, Guangzhou, Hong Kong, Singapore, and now Indonesia. So that's what we do. We're a small, tight bunch, very committed, having a lot of fun. And we are in the data center space, which is booming simply because of these kind of podcasts and all the clicks you people do. Every time you do a click, it requires access to a server, and that server is in a data center like ours. So that's where we are right now. That's me in a nutshell. I hope I conveyed something about my background. I also write. It's a passion of mine. It stems, I think, from my programming background. When you writing a program in a very concise manner and writing a dialogue in a very concise manner is quite similar. So I wrote a book, as you mentioned, Bombay Swastika. I wrote it when I was having a small sabbatical, 6 months, in Malaysia. And then we gave it to the publisher, and it became a bestseller for 3-4 months. I was surprised. And I still get a nice retainer check, small one, nothing big, every few months. And, it's not bad. It's not bad. It's quite a nice gig. I'm writing a second book now, which the publisher is threatening me because I keep delaying the final version, but I'll have it out shortly.
Wonderful, and that's really wonderful that you keep these two hats and a lot of other hats. So before we go to BDx and as well, so can you tell us a bit about your career, because you have a fantastic career working with different companies, and like you said, you start with difficulties in school, but then you actually took it to a completely different level, and I think that shows as well and I think it's one of the things I try to portray in this series is I think the background of people sometimes is completely different from what they end up actually doing. And we have a lot of entrepreneurs listening to us around the world, universities, students. And I always like to be inspiring. And I think personalities like you can inspire, but as well, it shows the complexity of our present day work and challenges that we're facing, but as well the opportunities, because sometimes a challenge becomes an opportunity and sometimes a failure as well. So a bit of this background, how do you end up actually becoming a CEO of a successful group, and as well a leader and an author as well?
All right. So, you have to, in the interest of full disclosure, I have to preface by saying that dumb luck plays a huge part. So all the young people out there struggling with keep in mind that timing is everything, and luck plays a huge part. And it played a huge part for me. Like I said, I was a very poor student in college for too many distractions, and as a result I barely managed to graduate. But I found that I was very good in programming and became a system analyst, and that had nothing to do with my college degrees. My college, I did I graduated in chemistry physics, and then in those days, programming was very different from what you call coding today. somehow I took to it, struggled through Unix, learned to program, became a decent systems analyst, and then came to Hong Kong on a very short project. It was supposed to be barely a month, 2 months of some minor work, programming work to be done. While I was, in Bombay, I was struggling. I was not a very successful person. And I come to Hong Kong. This unsuccessful guy from Bombay comes to Hong Kong, and it was just when Hong Kong was completely spooked by the British handing over the keys to China. So this was in the early 90s, and Margaret Thatcher had just come, and the whole deal was done, and Hong Kong was spooked. People were leaving Hong Kong when I come in, and in those days, South China Morning Post, the paper was this thick, but the wanted job section was this thick, because all the talent was leaving Hong Kong. And then this Indian dude comes in, and I walked into a job. It was the easiest. I won't make it sound like I had to struggle a lot. It was easy because of the timing. I came in when everyone was leaving. So what can you say? So, guys, timing, and then hard work, and then luck, but timing. Yeah, so then, after that, it was not that difficult, because you just kept moving up the totem pole, again, because of the huge shortage of talent. People much better than me were leaving the territory, and I came in. And so I worked in Hutchison AT&T, that was my first job, I think, and then I became the head of Sprint for Southeast Asia. Then I moved to Singapore. Then I worked for another company called Teleglobe, which moved me to the US. Again, it was the easiest immigration. I used to tell my daughter how difficult it is. You should be grateful, but actually it wasn't. The company did everything, moved to the US. However, after that job in Teleglobe, all my assignments, all my jobs have been back in Hong Kong. So even though I lived in the US, all my work has been in Hong Kong. I was employee number 1 of PCCW Global, which is one of Hong Kong's largest telco companies. And I set that up. And after which, it was HGC again, and then Reliance, as you mentioned in the preamble, and now BDx. So it's been an interesting journey. It's been exciting. A lot of mistakes made in the middle. Got fired once, I have to admit it. And I tell you, that was, I think everyone should get fired at least once. It brings a level of humility, and it really reinvigorates you, makes you into almost a new person. So what you're seeing right now here is that damaged person after this whole trail from Bombay to Hong Kong to Singapore to the US and back to Hong Kong, and now sitting in Bali.
Wow, that's inspiring and as well powerful, and as well I think the role of luck in business, in life, and as well in the career, that's quite impressive. And before we go to your achievements as a professional, and you are quite humble because you achieve actually quite big things, and all these companies are not small companies, let's put it that way. But at the same time, so in terms of how did you cope between this part of the technologies to the professional, and as well your side as an author, because of course the two things is interesting. And I think one of the things that I really push on this channel is the power of ideas to shift our lives, and actually as well shift businesses, because without ideas, like you said, an accident that you had changed your life in terms of humility, but as well reframe probably your focus and your attention to things.
So writing has been something, has been a passion of mine since I was very young. My grandfather was the poet laureate in Punjab, so I think that may have played a part, either DNA or the fact that you have a grandfather who's a acclaimed author and a poet. Maybe that worked its part. But and then I think there's clearly a link, at least in my mind, the way I would structure. So when I picked up writing the book, I harked back to the way I would structure my coding, my program, and it helped. So if you see, my writing is very concise. There's no extraneous words, because in those days in programming, and when you're programming in India on a PDP-11, everything is very precious. Unlike in the US, you had a lot of memory, a lot of RAM. You could do what you want. Our computers were very limited in their ability to manage programs, so we had to be very, very focused and very concise. And I think that has helped me in my writing too. And also the ability to, when you're writing a book, you get what they call writer's block, or you're stuck somewhere. Similar to in a program, when you're writing a program, I can't remember the number of times I would be stuck, couldn't think it through. And I would just put two desks together in the office and sleep. But when I would wake up, you would always have the answer. When you woke, it was incredible. However difficult the problem was, when I woke up, I had the answer somehow. And the same thing works in writing. You get stuck in the plot, you don't know which, and the plot sometimes has a life of its own. The characters have their own life. They then lead you, but you're stuck somewhere. Then just go to sleep. You wake up, you have the answer. So that was how, the link. I'm trying to establish the link between my past career programming and writing. Now there's another link between, as I tell during my when I talk to management students, writing a novel, a 400-page novel, complete, that is published, not self-published, published by a publisher who paid me money. It teaches you a lot about how to complete an assignment properly. A whole project completed nicely with a red ribbon tied around it and ready to go. And the same attention to, when you're writing a novel, to close it the way I just mentioned, there has to be a fanatical attention to detail, while at the same time having the broad, the ability to look at the whole picture, how the plot, how the arc of the story is developing, but then at each, the inciting incident, the turning points, the ordeals, at each point, the details also cannot be ignored. And readers are very unforgiving, very unforgiving. If you as a writer make a mistake and they catch it, they lose respect for you and the book. And the same thing, you translate it into a product that you're productizing. And that's worked very well for me. Whether it's a product, whether it's, setting up a company, running a team, one tends to make a habit out of closing something properly. And I think that came from my writing. So writing has got huge dividends. And I would urge everyone to write. You don't have to write a novel, but write, because success. So you see here, there's a student who barely managed to graduate and no further degrees after that. But this guy can write, and he practices writing, and he can speak, he can write. And these two are far, far more important in your career than your academic qualifications. This is what I have learned in my 30 years out there, that the ability to speak, Dennis, to you, like how we're talking to each other, convey ideas, and to convey them on paper, far, far more important than what degree you may have. So this is a takeaway, I think, for anyone who's listening to this podcast.
Well, fantastic words and inspiration. I'm completely with you. And I think writing is a great way of processing, I think, discipline, and as well putting in the theory in practice, let's put it that way. And I think especially for leadership is a key element. If you look, most of the the global leaders are reading books or writing books. There's a reason for that. Of course, some of them might be because of ego or stuff like that, but most of them is really because it's a great way. For instance, the books, actually, I just created recently a new section on this YouTube channel that is Books ABCs. I might do one about your books. And I think one of the things that I've been doing is this is a great way to reframe, and especially if you're leading a company like you, if you're leading big companies and big corporations, is even more important because you need to think business model, strategy, managing people. There's a lot of things, and as well keep innovating and keep learning. So fantastic. And I want to touch this more and more for the end of the interview, but I think let's go right now to your achievements in terms of career. So you mentioned some of the achievements. I think we'll talk more about BDx. So tell us about how do you achieve to BDx, and I think probably some of the achievements that you want to highlight, because it's amazing what you've achieved, but it's amazing as well how you kept this balance between the different things and this kind of straightforward, direct approach, which I admire a lot.
If I was to, I think achievements again are not a function of one's inherent abilities and talents, though they play a part. I tend to be a driver. I drive myself. I drive my colleagues. We have a thing in BDx that BDx is like a bus with drivers, and no, we don't want passengers. Everyone in the BDx bus is a driver. We all drive, and somehow because we're all drivers, we align in the same direction. There are very few passengers in this who just sit back and are reactive. So that has been my personality. I think is purely genetical, nothing to do with anything else. It's just that I'm a pushy sort of a guy, as people will agree, sometimes unpleasantly so. But at the end of the day, you can be the most competent personality. You can have all the right mix, right? But again, I have to come back to the timing and the luck and the circumstances. If you're not at the right place at the right time, you can be the most hardworking, best person, highly competent person. Sometimes it may not gel the way it should. So now this may, discourage people that if it's all timing, then what the heck, right? But no, you also have to take advantage of the opportunity that comes with the timing. And a lot of people fail in that department. They are competent, they're knowledgeable, but when the time is right and the opportunity is there, they don't take advantage of it. Now, I was in Bombay, and like I said, I was struggling. The opportunity came to go to Hong Kong, and it was given to 3 of us, and two people incredibly declined. They declined. I don't remember now. It's a long time ago, but something the family pressure or whatever, they didn't go. They found their current job with the Indian high-tech company to be satisfactory. I took it. I took that opportunity, and because I took that opportunity and made the move to Hong Kong, I arrived there when the Hong Kong was being emptied of talent. So there has to be the right timing. It was the right timing to be in Hong Kong because Hong Kong had a dearth of talent at the time, but you had to take the opportunity to go there. So while I keep stressing the importance of timing, there's also the adjunct requirement that you have to grab the opportunity when the timing places it before you. And I would say a vast majority of people don't do that. And to do that, you have to be aware, you have to be a driver, you have to be, looking all the time for where the opportunity is and striking. So it's, timing is important, but if you are not ready for it, it's no use.
I love the way you answer, and I think this is very important for management. I think because in the end of the day, And this is a masterclass in management, because in the end of the day, 90% of the success, and I speak of my own as a CEO, I separate my hat as a CEO, as an author as well, and I subscribe that to you, is that 90% of the success, and I think you call it luck, I call it persistence, because you, in the end of the day, you went to a place that the other ones didn't want to go, and you used that opportunity because everyone was running away, but you were not afraid, so you use it. And I think that's what I feel as well. If you look at business opportunities or achievements in technology, it's been persisting in solving one problem when most of the people quit. And I think really that's what I'm hearing from you. Of course, there's different approaches towards this, but it's really fantastic approach. And I think I love the way you put it, because you put it very simple, but it's very complex. And I think that's probably your summary capacity as an author as well. But it's really a big thing for business, because 90% of, even in my team, we distribute ourselves, and I think everyone that I know, and people shoot in 20 different directions. But in the end of the day, it's one or two things that will pay the bills. It's one or two clients. It's one or two products. And I think this is, and even if you look at Google, it's one or two products that pay 90% of their revenues still now, okay? And even on data, you are on data. So I think let's go right now from this theory to the practice, because I love this, and I think for people listening to us, I think this is a great reflection. But so you are managing very big companies that are really dealing with big problems. That is the biggest problem of our times. That is about data and ownership of data and managing the systems of data and all these different things, and content systems that you did before. So tell us a bit about the technical parts and what the problems you're solving with BDx and some of the companies that you've been working on, especially the present projects and products that you are managing now.
So the arc that led me to BDx actually started in telecommunications. So I've seen the whole history of telecommunications from the time when we had accounting rates, where the only way a layperson will understand how the whole arcane nature of accounting rates is. I don't know if you remember, you were too young maybe, but there was a time when you were paying almost $2, $3 US per minute for a call, overseas call. You remember those days, right?
Yes,
And
completely. I remember to
the,
receive some bills of thousands of dollars for a small call. Yeah.
Now you have to understand from an old telco hand that it was a scam. It was a scam. I am Hong Kong Telecom, you are AT&T, you are the only carrier. This is before MCI and Sprint, and MCI and Sprint came up later, but in AT&T was the only, I'm just giving an example. I don't mean to denigrate either party, but I'm giving an example of the accounting rate scam. I'm not saying the company is scammed, but the accounting rate scam. So you have the carrier in the US and a carrier in Hong Kong, and they both then decide, hey, let's decide that the accounting rate is, throw a dart, let's say $6. So in other words, $6 is accounting rate. So so then we had something called a half circuit. So half the circuit would come from Hong Kong, half the circuit the American carrier would pay. And now what happens is, when Dinis made a call to me from the US to Hong Kong, the US carrier, AT&T or Sprint or whatever, would then bill you for at $3 a minute. Or $3 is the base price we have agreed to, right? That you will pay, that AT&T will pay me. He'll charge you $5. He'll charge you anything. And the justification as well, the accounting rate is $3. But the accounting rate was arrived at with no economic foundation, because as we found out later, that the actual cost was barely a few cents. So I've been there in the business since the accounting rate era, where nothing could go wrong with the telecom business. It was gangbuster, just like how the data center business is today. And so today, when people tell me, hey, data centers can only go this way, they're not as old as I am to know that it won't. There's a time when, if it happened in the invincible telecoms, it's going to happen again. But the point is, at that time, there was this inflection point where the accounting rate regime was collapsing. You can't continue with this scam for too long, right? people are going to break through it. So then you had what you call Refile, you had many other carriers, you had Sprint and MCI coming in. And so the accounting rate started to fall. I was brought in at that time in Asia to manage the soft landing. It was a huge experience for me to be able to change our revenue streams from millions of dollars doing nothing. Sorry, let's say billions of dollars doing nothing and convert it into millions of dollars doing some very hard work. And people who survived the transition managed to flourish, and many people just fell by the wayside who could not manage the transition. It's very interesting. When transitions happen, Dennis, there are two kinds of people. So I had friends who would do their 9 to 5. They were not shirkers. They were not people who avoided hard work. They had families. They would get up in the morning. They would go to their telecom office, 8:30, 9, work till 5, 6, 7, maybe late, go home. After the shakeup, after this whole accounting rate regime collapsed and the refile started, that means the whole regime changed. I won't go into the details. Two kinds of people. One, who continued to work the way they were working. They did not change. They had a work ethic. They were working, but they did not change. They kept working the way they used to work. And almost to a man, they got fired. Almost to a man. And then there were the others who could adapt, who may not have been such hard workers as those friends I had, who didn't work that hard, but who could adapt to the new regime. And they were the guys who took it to the next step. So that was the first big trauma I had to undergo. And then the next one was the coming of the internet. The internet came, changed everything. I remember, Dennis, the first circuit I sold, it was to Singapore Telecom to go to the US, and it was barely 155 megs, and we would bill Singapore Telecom $500,000 a month for that circuit. Today, a 1 gig circuit to the US is barely $3,000. So the first trauma was the accounting rate thing I had to go through, then the internet, and then again in the internet, which when it became, look at us, we're on the internet. Until 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, the internet was basically, emails. And now it is a video playground. And this whole transition into video has traumatized the telecommunication industry totally, because now you have people like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, actually becoming the telecoms of the world. They have more fiber cable, subsea cable, than the telcos. And the telcos, again, Dennis, the telcos, almost to a man, the telco giants of today, almost to a man, behave like my friends, my 9 to 5 friends, who just could not change. The telcos could not change. They saw WhatsApp happening, and they still could not change their SMS texting. It still remained the same boring SMS text. And WhatsApp came and took it. Who sends an SMS now, right? So all of this, I've been in the midst of all these changes, and they, I think, in a way have fashioned me rather than, so if I say that I have achieved something, I don't know, but I have definitely been molded by one change after another. And to the point that I've come to enjoy it, I've really come to enjoy the changes. And so now few things faze me. I don't get hassled by a change, because it's going to happen. What can you do? So I think the lesson there, takeaway from there, is that changes are coming, guys. And we all tend to be distrustful of change. We tend to not want it. Many times I put a blinker, I go into denial. I think we have to embrace it, because it's always going to happen.
No, this is fantastic and inspiring, and I love the way you synthesize it because I love the metaphor. It's really, I think we'll take this, and I liked it in the interview, but it's true. The innovation is about people that keep doing the 9 to 5, and it's a fantastic metaphor because it is okay. People still like this, and they expect other results. It's the definition of Einstein. If you keep doing the same stuff over and over again.
And they're nice people. And today you can see in the US, so there's a huge amount of resentment in America, which has fueled so much of the unpleasantness we see. And that is because, and these people really, so if one tends to be sometimes look at them and say, what are these people? But they are actually, if you go and talk to them, they are actually very decent, hardworking people who've had the rug taken away from under their feet, and they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. America had a nice compact between the filthy rich and the middle class, and this was a deal in America. You, Mr. Filthy Rich, keep making all the money you want, as long as we have a house with a mortgage, 2 cars, and our kids can go to college. This was the deal. This was the handshake between the two sides, right? And it lasted right through till the early 80s. And now that handshake has been broken, and people are upset. And they're upset because they can't change. So the handshake is broken. Now you can be bitter about it, or you can change. So when we talk derisively about the young kids who are doing Bitcoin, the crypto miners, they are the ones who are, the Bitcoin.
They're disrupting. They're disrupting.
They're the guys who've taken the bull by the horn, done the change, and going with it. And they're the guys who'll survive.
I think amen. I think that's the word. But it's really impressive the way you summarize it. But this is actually, well, now I actually opened a Pandora box of questions, but I was not planning. At least I think we'll have to have a separate interviews just about this. But before we go to BDx, because you open, I think the biggest problem of the world economy is that we have the 9 to 5 people that have good intentions, and then what most of my team, unfortunately, is like that. Even if I want people that think out of the box, even the ones that are more smart, they still want the 9 to 5, and they think that's the only stuff that matters. But the reality is that is not. The reality is that is not 9 to 5. We have to adapt to innovation. We have to adapt to disruption. And I think the challenge is that we have 3 kind of. I'm trying to summarize a bit similar to your fantastic capacity of synthesis. But I think the point is that we have the 9 to 5 people that have a job and they can be blessed to have a job. Then there are people like us that are breaking the limits and keep adapting and moving forward. And then there's unfortunately still a huge part of the world economy that are not even adapted to the 9 to 5. And I think the challenge is how these 3 levels will cope, because as we are creating the further iteration, especially after data, the AI and robots, and Tesla is already working and creating big scale humanoids, which are going to be produced from end of 2022 to 2023. So you're going to have a lot of disruption, especially when it comes to data, because like you said, you mentioned the telecoms, which is still a problem, because if you go to Dubai, you cannot use WhatsApp, but if you use if you use a VPN, of course you can. So the irony is that for people that are sophisticated and they have money, you can actually disrupt the city. And you mentioned crypto, that is disrupted the entire world economy. But for instance, the metaverse is going to disrupt even more, because, and actually especially for databases, there's a question I have about databases, because the crypto consumption of databases is going to be 1,000. This is a study for VentureBeat, 1,000 times bigger than all the present systems in the world, especially as we create digital twins of everything in the planet. But I think coming back to this, how do you see these 3 kind of directions of the ones that are included but are 9 to 5 framework, the people like us that we are still a minority, and actually that's why we achieve a lot of things. And then of course the ones that are on the border of society, because these 3 things, and actually the ones on the border of society, will disrupt the other, especially the 9 to 5, because like you said, that's the Americans. As long as I get my stuff, I don't care how much tax you pay. And actually, that's most of the people in the world. Most of the people, and I'm not saying anything bad about them, but that's they feel entitled. For instance, this is a big problem in Europe, and this is actually destroys innovation, and the people are framework for that. It's not like they are guilty. It's because the culture. I think you and me think out of the box, but this is a big challenge for society, and especially technology will not solve this problem. What is going to solve this problem is us humans, because technology will just optimize processing, and all the Ray Kurzweil perspective of exponential growth is going to be just crazier and crazier with data centers, AI, and everything else. But well, it's a big question, but I have to touch it here with you because you are a man of big thinking.
Yeah, it is loaded with minefields, the question you ask, because there are so many facets to it. So let me try and grasp at least 2-3 of them. So firstly, the role of technology, and then I'll touch on the people on the edges. The role of technology can't be, and that of globalization can't be understated. Today, at a 7.2 billion population in the world, it would not have been sustainable if it was not for technology. Whether it is technology to grow food, whether it is communications, whether it is, things like clothing. Technology has managed to feed and clothe a vast majority of the 7.2 billion. We have famines. We have problems right now. We're having a problem in Ethiopia, Eritrea, because of war. We're having a lack of food situation globally, especially in Africa, again, because of the war in Ukraine. But if it wasn't for these stupidities, just think about it. I was alive when India had its last famine in 1966. A famine. That means, I was in, and this is there in Bombay swastika. I was in Bombay, and you have the Western Ghats, is a mountain range. And then you have the rain shadow region on this side of the Western Ghats, to the east of the Western Ghats, where the famine was building up. And you had we living in Bombay, totally, protected from the forces of that famine that took place. So this is a real famine. People, kids with pot bellies, not getting enough food. Today, India is an exporter of wheat. Today, the problem is, with Ukraine having stopped wheat exports, India is now the responsibility to export wheat. How did this come about? This came about by technology, right? And I remember when I was growing up, or when I was in India, to have a telephone was a 10-year wait. 10-year wait to have a telephone, right? Today, there's this iconic picture of a lady sweeping the floor. She's a janitor. She's sweeping the floor, and she's talking on the cell phone at the same time. So technology has had a huge role to play. Globalization has had a huge role to play in our being able to feed, clothe, and sustain a population of 7.2 billion. I'm saying this because the forces at play today in various countries, the forces of nationalism, I'll call them, are so dangerous because they tend to pervert and sabotage this globalization that allows us, people like you and me, to grow, people like your 9 and 5 to keep their jobs, and the people like those at the edges you talk about to at least not starve, right? At least they may be on the edge, they may be frustrated, right? But they have access to internet, most of them. They have cell phones, they have food that they can afford. I'm not trying to belittle their challenges. It's terrible. Even in the US, sometimes I see things that break my heart. But on an average, 7.2 billion people, right? A vast majority of them being not starving, which I thought would be impossible when we hit 7 billion. is a result of technology and globalization. And all this, my friend, can go like this if we allow these forces of nationalist forces to succeed. So I know it's a political statement, but it's also economical. Someone told me the other day, a very wise Chinese guy, he said to me, the problem is globalization is an economic construct. And that is why it gets beaten up. If instead it was a political construct or a religious construct, we would have not had the problem. So he said it facetiously, but there's something to be said for that. If you're asking me what's going to happen to those folks at the edges, firstly, I've laid the groundwork by telling you that at least they are not if it was not for technology, their situation would have been far, far worse. Let's put it that way, right? Now we come to what's next. I think, you spoke about Europe and how people take things for granted. I'm a firm believer that there has to be, given the fact that the vast majority of people are going to be in some sort of 9-to-5 mode. Everyone can't be a Dinis. Everyone, it's just not possible. It's just not possible. It's the law of, there's a book by Colin Wilson many, many years ago when I was in school about 10%. 10% of any population are the overachievers. Now, it's very interesting. That 10%, if they're given the opportunities, or if they grasp the opportunities, or they're given them, they become a Dennis. If they're not given the opportunities, they become those master criminals. They're the same. A master criminal, right? Whom we deride, has got the same mental makeup as you, by the way. I'm sorry. I hope you don't take it in an insulting way, but it's true.
No. I understand that you have to have a completely crazy drive. So it's
true.
It's a parallel. Yes.
So in India, I would there were certain communities that were associated with smuggling, with illegal dealings, and the community was derided. But no one mentioned the fact that the guys in that community, if they went to compete for a proper job, they would never get it. So you have this A personality, this 10% of that community who is not getting the opportunities that people like me got. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to become master criminals, right? So in that 10%, so in that people on the edges that you're talking about, it is our duty. I know in America, there's a strong strain about, look at that guy, he's useless. He's, why should I have to pay? Why should I be taxed to pay for him? And I think to an extent we have to be, so that whether we like it or not, there are huge sectors of society in America, in India, in Europe, who have not been able to get a fair shake of the pie, a fair shake of the economic benefits that are there. And if we don't involve them, or at least pay for them to at least have a chance, then they're going to do what you just said. They won't make your life easy. You and I will be living in gated communities, or our kids will be living in, if we pass wealth over to the kids, they're going to be living in gated communities, because those guys are going to be outside. And human beings being what they are, a human being is not going to take a situation where he's got nothing, and my kid is driving around in a Mercedes. Something's going to give. So it's better to give everyone an opportunity, a chance, not because you're being philanthropic, not because you are, bleeding heart liberal, but because of a broader sense of selfishness. I think we all have to do that.
Well, I make your words mine as well. I completely subscribe. And I think it's a challenge that is going to be increasing bigger. So, let's go back right now to the technology. I think because you are a man of ideas, but you are as well a man of technology. So let's look at what BDx is doing, some of the products, some of the solutions. I know that some of them are quite technical, but our audience has quite a lot of technical people. So if you could summarize some of the things, because I think one of the ways we can actually change society, like you said, is demystifying the tools, because these tools are only perceived by very few people. So, and I think that's what people like you and me are doing, is that we're building very advanced tools that very few people understand, but everyone is using them indirectly. And you mentioned the idea of servers for data, for video, for our social media, which is a huge part of the world data that you consume, and as well that creates advertisement, revenue streams, and so forth. So if you could put some of the products of BDF, you guys have a lot of different innovation. That's from BDx collocation services, Smart Ends, Single Pane, Soft Connect, and as well a lot of things related with it, just in the summary level.
We have a lot of innovations, Dennis, but we have very few products, and I'll tell you why. We have a lot of innovation built around what we do, but the end result is a very few solid products, and that's so one of the stories we like to pitch for BDx is that of the fox and the hedgehog. So if you look at the BDx logo, BDx, there are some quills at the end of the X, and that signifies a hedgehog. So there's the story about the fox and the hedgehog. The fox is good at so many things, right? The fox can run. The fox is devious. You can't catch it. It is nimble. It is intelligent. It's mobile. It does a lot of things. So it's good at many things. The hedgehog is great at just one thing. It's not good at many things, but it's great at one thing, and that is protecting itself. When the fox comes close to it, it becomes a spiny ball. You can't come close to it, right? So that's the only thing the hedgehog can do, but it does it very well, right? And that kind of is what we look at BDx. So while my competitors, competing data centers, want to get into telecoms, they want to get into public cloud, they want to get into various other facets of the ecosystem where we work in. In BDx, we just want to do one thing, and we want to do it better than anyone else, and that is to provide our customers the best housing possible for their hybrid infrastructure. So, and now that leads me to the technology part. If you go into a data center, it is rows upon rows of servers, thousands of servers in racks. If you remember the Matrix movie, they had something like that. And these servers are where the cloud is. The cloud is not on the cloud. The cloud is in these servers. When you use WhatsApp, it's in these servers. When you play video games, it's in these servers. Now, thousands and thousands of servers generate a lot of heat. And the data center, what it does is manage that environment with high-tech solutions. So a data center allows the servers to function 24/7 at a temperature that is optimal and which can never go down. So it may sound simple, but just think about it. Never, ever can we allow a server to fail, because that means WhatsApp will go down. That means Zoom will go down. That means, and Zoom did go down once when a data center failed. That means Facebook can go down. That means a lot of critical stuff can go down. A nuclear plant can go down because their servers maybe. So, for example, a lot of critical infrastructure in the cities where we are is in our data center. If that data center went down, maybe an immigration department would stop. Maybe the trains would stop. So these data centers are kept at such a level of the security built around it is so tight that, or so solid, that they can never go down. It is a consuming task to make sure that happens, to make sure that it never goes down. The redundancies that are built in, if something goes wrong here, this will take over. If this thing goes wrong, that will take over. So our whole mission in life in data centers is to manage distributed redundancies, as we call it. That means never can there be an incident that is a single point of failure. We can't have those. So basically, a data center, a good data center, will never have a single point of failure. It'll always have multiple backups. So that is one technology we focus on. Then, of course, comes you have data centers across a whole swath of geography. How do you manage all of them? And that's when automation comes in. That's when AI comes in. So we have, in the old days, you would go to a data center, you would see people sitting in front of TV screens and watching everything. We found out, of course, that most of the time they're playing video games because there's nothing. Data centers are so solid. That is no longer the case. In BDx, everything, all the data centers are connected to our cloud. And from there to my smartphone. And I can now sit here and get the health parameters of my data center in Nanjing, Guangzhou, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Indonesia from my smartphone, as can my whole team. So that has become a huge game changer for us. It allows us to acquire or build a data center we're looking at the Middle East, we're looking at Australia, we're looking at, I think, where else? Sri Lanka, a variety of places, and we're not fazed by it. We're not scared, we're not worried, because we connect them all back, and we have a system in place to plug these data centers in to a central command. All of that is brought about with the technology that we have developed in-house. So this platform that we have, we call it 360 view. It allows us to, and we offer this to our customers too. So the same 360 view, so we sell space in our data centers to customers, right? I explained why. They need to put their cloud and their WhatsApps and all. Then to manage that data center, we have 360 view, central command looking at all data centers. The same 360 view, each data center operator has got, so he can look at that, doesn't have to stare at a screen, he's got it on his phone. The same 360 view we also give our customers so they can view the health parameters of their own racks or cages. So one software used by central command, used by each data center, and used by the customers. This is a huge innovation. I don't think anyone else has done it. So this is something which we are generally proud of in BDx. One more thing we have done, Dinis, and I'll shut up after this, is given the fact that we are such huge consumers of power, we have now tied up with a sustainability company and to their blockchain. And we can now, from our data centers, give our customers a look at their carbon footprint. They can do their greenhouse gas reporting. Either they can print it out or do it securely through the blockchain. And this is I don't think anyone else does this, but we are so, if there's one thing that spooks me, that scares me, it is the power usage of our data centers and the industry as a whole. It's unsustainable. You can't do this. You can't have the amount of power we are consuming and continue to grow. There's going to be a. So we are doing things like this reporting. I just mentioned the 360 view now has a carbon element to it, a sustainability element to it. But in addition to that, we're looking at all sorts of new ways to manage, to bring sustainable power. So our focus now in the data center industry, other than having innovations in data like 360 view, is actually in sustainability. How do I make my data center more efficient, and how do I create renewable power? And let me tell you, solar panels don't cut it. Solar panels don't cut it. There has to be a better solution to the amount of power that we need. And I'm now going to say something that is very controversial, but I do believe. So maybe you and I, 3 years from now, let's come back and see if I was right. And I think nuclear power plants, small, like the ones they have in nuclear submarines or the ones they have in nuclear aircraft carriers, they are going to power data centers. There's no other way. There's no other way. I can't think of any. The way the industry is growing, the amount of power we're consuming, the amount and the demand that's coming, more and more and more. We are with metaverse. What's going to happen? What do you think the metaverse is? It's going to happen, Dinis. Metaverse is going to happen, and we are all going to have our. It's going to be huge. It's going to be a completely another paradigm shift, like the ones I was telling you about, the accounting rate and internet and video. Now, that's going to be, though, that metaverse is going to reside, my friend, it's going to reside in servers. It's going to reside in servers. And the amount of computation that's going to take place for a metaverse is not funny. And it's not just going to be Facebook and Zuckerberg who's going to do metaverse. There's going to be a number of metaverses. And who's going to power all that? Where's all that power going to come from? Nuclear energy. There's nothing. I can't think of anything else. And right now, the only issue with nuclear is how you're going to dispose of the waste, the nuclear waste. Well, there has to be a way. There has to be some way. And I think it's the easier solution than keep digging for fossil fuels. There we are. So these are all the things that keep us up at night. I just laid out for you.
And your vision is quite correct. I think I subscribe most of that, and I think I will not go technical on the nuclear part because it's not my area. But I think you know much more than me, and I think most of the things you touch actually are very alarming and very powerful. And well, first of all, congratulations on the work you guys are doing, because I think it's really impressive. And I think there's a lot of questions that you just opened right now here. But in terms of time, and I think we passed already 1 hour, 15 minutes. So I want to be respectful of your time. So in terms of, you touched the idea, 2 parts, especially in the last part, which opened a lot of different questions. But let's look at 2 in particular. So one is the exponential growth of data. So we are still in the beginning. This is going to be much bigger. And we have the exponential growth of data for the Web 3.0, for instance. And we have as well the metaverse, let's put it that way, because according to most of the studies I mentioned before, is 1,000 times bigger. So how can we cope with this growth and this exponential growth? That's the first part of the question. And the second one is, how can we create sustainable business out of this? And you mentioned that you're working in an organization and a company for that, and I'm sure it will be a second talk of interview for the future. But how do you cope these 2 things, because the 2 are interrelated?
How do you sustain the growth? I'm not worried about that. We have seen again and again and again that when the right product comes at the right time, it takes off. Once you have networking externalities, like, let's look at the fax machine. The first fax machine you bought, what do you do with it? You plug it in. Who are you going to send a fax to? There's no one else. But the minute I have a fax machine, then we both can communicate. Then someone else has a fax machine, and you have the networking externalities, and the technology just takes off. Same things happen with the internet. Same things will happen with the metaverse. The metaverse is where every person and every enterprise will have a stake. So the same way as, for example, companies have web pages, they're going to have a they better start looking right now for a metaverse location, because it's going to be, so this, just think of, I think the best way I can discuss it is we're going to graduate from the URLs into the metaverse. That's what's going to happen. You're going to just graduate from there. Your web page is going to become passe, and it's going to be the metaverse. And then in the metaverse, you know, we're going to, augmented reality is going to become an extension of us, my friend. And I think in many ways, Hollywood, you know, thinks it through better than us. And there are some very interesting movies that play on the subject. But I tell you, they hit the technology spot on. If you look at our reality, right? So you and I are used to this reality. I'm sitting in this room. I'm used to this room. And now look at it. You are now part of my reality, though you are sitting in Europe, right? I'm sitting here. We both. It just took one pandemic for this to become so normal, right? So normal for me to talk to you. I can sit in here in Bali, or I can go back to Hong Kong. I don't have to move out of my home, and I can conduct business because of this, right? Now, the next step is going to be, I'm stepping into something, you're going to step into something, and we're both going to be there. And that's going to become the new reality. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And we are racing in BDx to see, we're starting off with digital twinning, because that is the first step for us to be able to. So now our data centers, when we make a new data center, we have a virtual build of it. We can check it out. We can test it. We're not there yet. We are still finalizing the digital twinning. But essentially, within a year or so, I won't have to go through laborious processes to try and test fit or test out a new construction, kick the tires. No, I can do it on a digital twin. That is a metaverse. In a way, it's augmented reality. I'm able to create a digital version of a data center that is as real as the one I'm going to build. If I make some mistake here, it will. If I use a different kind of concrete, or if I use a different kind of chiller, and I make the change in the digital version, it will be exactly like if I had done that in the real version. But now I don't have to build the real one first. I can do all the testing here. So this is one step to the metaverse. But of course, this is a technical use. The most important use is going to be, me being able to sit with my grandchild and play with him, even though he's sitting in San Francisco and I'm here. So it's going to happen, my friend. It's going to happen. That was the first part of the question. The second part, what the second question was? So one was
about how to do the sustainability on that.
How do you control these things? It takes me. The human factor will just it's going to explode. So there's going to be no. We'll be able to. We could not. When a technology explodes, you can't control it. Internet. Could anyone control it? They're trying. China is trying. China did it, but at what cost, right? But by and large, a technology like internet, pornography. Who has been able to control it? It is just for a long time before internet became a video playground and everything else became video. Almost 60% of the internet was pornography. You can't control it. If someone is thinking that the metaverse can be controlled, you're kidding yourself. It's going to, all you can do is scale, get yourself ready to scale with it, because it's going to, like I said, if you look at the metaverse as replacing URLs just for the corporate world, forget anything else. Think of the size of the business. Think of the size of the business. Now, we're not talking about individuals. We're not talking about the rest of it. We're just talking about the corporate world and their web pages. I'm not even talking about the entertainment, the games. I'm just talking about simple BDx web page. Your business, the web page, Carbon Nation web page, just the front page. No more URL, but a metaverse. Just think about it. That itself is mind-boggling. And we're looking at the problem we have is where are we going to be able to build? So I think the question you're asking is, I'm coming to it finally in my convoluted way. It all ties up, right? I mean, to the earlier things we discussed, you are going to need a heck of a lot of data centers far beyond what we are doing. How is that possible? It's not possible with the current technologies that govern power generation, right? Basically, it all boils down to, Dennis, it boils down to power, electricity. Powering those servers, powering those data centers is going to become so critical when the metaverse kicks in, because where is the power? You don't have the power today. It's just not there. Which is why I brought up the controversial thing about nuclear, which doesn't please many people. But you tell me, what else do we have?
Well, it's really impressive, and I love the technical level that you go on this. And I think this is I want to probably do another series about this because it's really a very important topic. So I'm cautious of time. I know that we passing on now. So one last question. So I think, and actually probably two. I'll try to be synthetic. So because all these questions open like massive things. So I know that you're right now working on the specific carbon neutral solutions, ESG, and you touched that before. So at least short term, what can we do? Because I think one of the challenges, of course, this creates new opportunities because we're not going to stop. Humanity is not going to stop. The metaverse is going to be thousands of times more powerful. And like you mentioned, the digital twins, definitely. I'm working in metaverse technology, and I can do already things that even me, I get confused about what I can do. And I can walk in a VR and I can do these things. And of course, this will create much more things because I will have multiple avatars of myself. But at the same time, I need to make sure that my carbon footprint is strong enough and that I can actually find a solution on this level. So that's my notes. How would you tackle this, and what are you doing? I know that you are actually working in concrete things for that.
Well, I think the first thing right now is to have a reality check. Your carbon, the carbon ecosystem today is built on sand. If you look at the Kyoto Protocol, and they created carbon trading. They made carbon into a commodity, right? It became, but it's an invisible commodity. And when a commodity is invisible, the frauds multiply. 1997 Kyoto Protocol was announced. By 2006, India had, India had earned $200 million in carbon credits. And now it's a multi-billion-dollar industry with no commensurate reduction in greenhouse gases. So just think about it. There's $100 billion industry with no commensurate reduction in greenhouse gases. So that is the size of the problem. You don't have you came up with a solution in theory, and then people gamed the solution. The greenhouse gases didn't come down, but the carbon trade is now huge, right? So, and after that, the Glasgow COP26 was a cop-out. In Paris, they're still struggling to see what they can do in cap and trade. And so the voluntary market has taken off. Voluntary means what? Means, tomorrow you and I can set up something and then we decide on we can make it sound very, 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 we can have a lot of gravitas in it, but there's so many, it's just not the way it's going right now. The carbon trade, there's no credibility in it. There's a lot of greenwashing. If I'm a large corporation and I need to show my shareholders that I'm doing something, hell, I'll get whatever carbon credits I can buy and offset it and feel good about it. But is it solving the problem? It's not. So in answer to your question about sustainability, we need to bring some credibility back into the carbon trade. Now, the people who we're connected to for the blockchain, they, Verdana, they are working on it. I believe you're working on it. But you need to, again, it's very interesting. What caused, so you asked me sustainability, how do you, what are we doing on it? We can't do much for it until the human element is addressed. You see, when I said that you have carbon trade is $100 billion business, but there's no reduction in greenhouse gases. Why is that? That's because of the human interaction at the point of validation, where there's a huge conflict of interest. However, if were you to digitize the whole thing, were you to digitize the collection of data into some repository from where, just like we're doing 360 view, you and I could all look at the same carbon footprint and see that if this project developer is saying, hey, I've earned 10 carbon credits and I want them certified, then at least I can look at the veracity of his claim, right? Rather than have to send someone, an auditor there to check it, who then is paid for by the program developer, and the conflict of interest comes, and the carbon trade and the credit is questionable. So these can only be solved when we digitize the pain points. The same thing as we do in BDx. How do we resolve our problems? I didn't mention it earlier. We digitize the pain points. If there's a pain point in a standard operating procedure, the best way to remove it is digitize it. And the same thing goes for the carbon trade. So until as a community, all of us don't agree that there's a problem and that the way to solve it is by digitizing, the problem will persist. And you and I will be discussing this again 5 years from now, and there's no solution in sight. Sounds pessimistic, I'm sorry, but
No, I think it sounds realistic, and I think it's really, for everyone listening to us, I definitely will do another series just about this, because it's one of the things everyone speaks, but no one goes to detail. And I appreciate, Braham, the detail and really the intelligence around this, because it's really, this is the biggest problem of, one of the biggest problems of humanity, because we'll have effects. You mentioned, of course, we have oil and gas problems, very basics, and outages and electricity problems still on the planet, but you're creating a technology that is going to consume much more. So we need to find new solutions. There's new business models, but as well, there's all the risks that you just mentioned that are critical for us. So definitely, I want to summarize right now, because there's a lot of fantastic things and I have a lot of questions here. So I want to right now come back to you as a thought leader, because what I love is that you put the two hats, although you put it in a very practical level. So you have the hat as CEO, and of course you're going to put information about BDx, which is quite technical for people listening to us, and I think you synthesize very well the different products you're doing. And then the solutions, actually, that's interesting, because you just mentioned the part of new solutions for metaverse database is going to be massive, because if everyone has an avatar, just managing the data of the avatar is not the same as managing the data of a small social media chatbot or a small social media page. It's much, much more, because will have as well consequences, because that avatar data, for instance, if you use an Apple Watch or a phone, with your health stuff data, you can know how much your health it is, how much kilometers you did, how much meters, and anything else, and then you can actually your phone starts knowing everything about your heartbeats, about probably when you're going to die, better than you, or you're going to have an heart attack. So I think on this level, so I want the human part of you and the CEO part of you. You're a very pragmatic person, but you're still a thought leader. So how can we deal with this now as humans, as professionals, and as leaders? So that's my last question to wrap up 1 hour and a half, and I want to do definitely a second round, because there's a lot of great things here that came out of this.
So I think it's the same. We can't, I hope my answer doesn't disappoint you, but we can't divorce our being humans from being CEOs or being professionals. It's all the same. If I put on a human hat and it is different, and then I start, and I think one way, and then if I remove it and put on my CEO hat, I think another way. That is not desirable, though it happens. though you know as a CEO that it happens. Sometimes we put on our CEO hat and we become we put on a different persona. And I'm not talking about egos. I'm not talking about becoming megalomaniacs. No, just the same thing. As a human, I am concerned about the global warming. As a human, I'm concerned about the climate change, and I know it's going to impact my grandkids badly, right? But then, as a CEO, suddenly I have to make a decision to get 40 megawatts of power for a data center that I need to build and make money from. But the power is going to come from a coal spewing plant, which is not going to change for the next 10 years. Would I? But the economical benefit to my company is huge. If I build a data center there next to the coal plant, I've got 40 megawatts of power that someone is willing to buy and give me a premium for. That is my CEO hat. And then my human hat was saying, you will never do it. What will my CEO hat say? That will decide the kind of character I am. That will decide how well my parents brought me up, So, yeah, so one tries, and I failed so many times, but one tries to have the same hat as a human, as a CEO, and as a professional. Otherwise, what the heck, I mean, life is too short, and then one day you're going to be lying there on the bed and thinking about that 40 megawatt plant. Your greed allowed you to build that, and then what did you leave for I'm meandering, but the point is, it is the same hat. It can't be different hats. I think so.
No, I love the way you put it, and it's very inspiring, and it's been a privilege to be here with you. And I definitely want to do a second and a third round. One about more the data part, because I think this topics, and this is really important for our business, but for people listening to us, because most of people have no clue, and special, for instance, just touch the metaverse database and census is another entire topic, because it's massive and people are no conscious about it. At the moment, people think, okay, some VR, some crazy guys in meta, but no, there's already 300 million children playing Roblox every day.
You know more about. You were asking me what the metaverse. You are there. I'm trying to understand it. You are there already, and
but you know the database. You know the databases. No, but the database part of that and all the technology necessary on that is where your expertise and knowledge and common sense is really key, because we can only build this if we prepare on that, because otherwise you're going to create another monster that can actually collapse. So yeah. And I'm very optimistic, but I try to be very realistic. So Brian, we didn't touch your books. Just to finalize, so tell us where people can find your books. And I can actually find some of your writing. I saw that you have as well in your BDx website, but we'll put all the links here, but coming from you is always better.
No, I think the book they can download on Kindle on Amazon. There's a promotion going on, and of course they can buy the hard copy on Amazon, or it's there in bookstores. I don't know which ones have it now. I'll be glad to send you links of the bookstores keeping it. But it's an interesting book. It's about German a Jewish refugee from Nazi Germany who ends up in Bombay in British India. And it's fascinating because he's German and he's in British India. It's 1939, war breaks out. And because he's German, he gets put into a internment camp by British in India. But because he's Jewish, his family gets put into a concentration camp by Hitler in Germany. So it was heartbreaking, but an interesting story. And I built from there, and it's an interesting story, and I wish people get a chance to read it. I'll send you the links. But it's there on Amazon.
Thank you so much.
Probably.
And the 2 books, actually, because there's one as well more technical. So this is 2, and I'm sure there's more coming. So we'll put all of these links. Brian, really pleasure and privilege. I know that we're working, but I didn't know these parts. And this is always great. That's why I love these interviews, because now we know each other. But I think for everyone listening to us, please go through the details of the interview and learn with Brian. Go to the website as well of BDx. There's a lot of great knowledge in terms of technical, but as well about the mind of the person leading this. Thank you.
Hey, see you. So talk to you soon. What a pleasure.
Thank you.